Let me ask you something honest. When you think about the moments in your life where you've genuinely missed someone, not just thought about them casually, but actually felt that specific ache of their absence, what was it that created that feeling? Was it because they texted you constantly? Was it because they made themselves completely available every single time you wanted them? Was it because they tried really hard to be memorable? Probably not. If you sit with it long enough, the people who have left that kind of mark on you did it almost without trying. There was something about the way they existed, some quality in how they moved through their own life that made the space they left behind feel noticeable. And that's actually the whole thing. That's the entire conversation I want to have today, because I think most guys are working from a completely wrong understanding of what creates the feeling of missing someone. And it's costing them in ways they don't even fully see. So, let's get into it properly. The most common thing I hear, and honestly, the thing that breaks my heart a little because it's so understandable but so misguided, is guys thinking that making a girl miss you is about withdrawal, about going cold, about suddenly becoming less responsive so that she notices your absence and wants you back. And look, I understand where that comes from. There's a surface-level logic to it. If you disappear, she has to notice you're gone, right? But here's what that approach completely misses. Withdrawal creates awareness of absence. It does not create the feeling of missing someone. And those two things are not the same. If I suddenly stop hearing from someone I was talking to regularly, I notice, of course I do, but what I feel in that moment depends entirely on what came before it. If the connection was rich, if that person brought something genuine into my life, if being around them made me feel a certain way that I don't feel with just anyone, then yes, the silence stings a little. I miss them. But if the connection was already a bit hollow, a bit one note, a bit too focused on me being entertained or impressed, rather than actually seen, then the silence just feels like relief, or nothing at all. The withdrawal didn't create the missing. Whatever existed before the withdrawal created it or didn't. That's the piece most guys skip over entirely. They go straight to the strategy of absence without doing the foundational work that makes absence mean something. So what actually does that? What creates the kind of impression that lingers? The first thing, and I want to take some time with this because it's more layered than it sounds, is the sense that you have a life she's not entirely part of. Not because you're hiding it or being mysterious on purpose, but because it's genuinely full. Because you have things you care about, people you're close to, directions you're moving in, that existed before she arrived, and will keep existing regardless of how things go between you. There's a version of this that sounds cold when described badly, so let me try to describe it well. It's not about being unavailable. It's about being someone who has a relationship with his own existence that doesn't require her participation to feel meaningful. When a woman gets a sense of that, something shifts, because most of what she sees in the dating world, especially early on, is men whose emotional world becomes very quickly and very visibly organized around her. And she can feel that. She can feel when she has become the center of someone's attention, in a way that places a quiet kind of pressure on her. And however much she might like that person, however genuinely attractive she finds them, that pressure slowly drains the curiosity out of the connection. Because there's nothing left to wonder about. She already knows she has all of you. But a man whose life has its own gravity, she finds herself wondering about him in the gaps. What is he doing right now? What does his world look like when she's not in it? That wondering, that natural curiosity that hasn't been fully satisfied, is the beginning of missing someone. Now, the second thing is connected but distinct, and it's about emotional texture. The interactions that tend to stay with someone are the ones that move through different emotional registers. The ones that weren't just consistently pleasant or consistently funny or consistently interesting, but that had some range to them. A moment of genuine vulnerability followed by something light. A slightly heated exchange that resolved into warmth. A quiet stretch that felt comfortable rather than awkward. Interactions that have texture leave a fuller impression than interactions that are just reliably smooth. I think about it sometimes like the difference between a meal that was fine and a meal that was genuinely memorable. The memorable one probably had contrast in it, something unexpected, a flavor combination you didn't see coming. That doesn't mean manufactured drama or keeping someone off balance in a calculated way. It means being a full person in the interaction, rather than a curated version of yourself that's been optimized to land well. Real people have texture. Real people are sometimes a little contradictory, and that realness is what gets replayed in someone's mind afterward. The third thing, and this might be the one that surprises people most, is the quality of how you made her feel about herself. Not about you, about herself. Because here's something I know to be true from both personal experience and from years of talking to women about their dating lives. The people we miss the most are often the ones around whom we felt most like ourselves. The ones who seemed genuinely curious about us, who listened in a way that made us want to keep talking, who found us interesting in ways that made us feel more interesting than we usually do. When you're with someone who makes you feel seen and interesting and a little more alive, leaving that interaction feels like stepping out of good light, and you find yourself wanting to get back into it. That's not manipulation. That's just what genuine attention does to people. The problem is that a lot of guys, especially when they really like someone, get so focused on how they're coming across that they forget to actually be curious about the person in front of them. The attention flows inward instead of outward, and she can feel that too. She can feel when she's a backdrop to someone's performance rather than the actual subject of someone's interest. Ask better questions. Remember what she told you. Follow up on things she mentioned in passing. That kind of attentiveness creates a warmth in people that they carry home with them. And warmth that you carry home tends to bring its source to mind. Here's something else I think doesn't come up often enough. Humor. Not jokes, not performing funny, but the particular kind of easy wit that comes from someone who is genuinely comfortable and paying attention. Lightness that emerges naturally rather than being produced for effect. When someone can make you laugh in a way that feels effortless, in a way that comes from actual chemistry between two people, rather than one person trying to entertain the other, that is memorable. Specific shared humor is one of the most bonding things that exists between people. Inside references, callbacks to something from earlier in the conversation. Noticing something absurd at the same moment she does. Those small moments of aligned perception create a kind of intimacy that's hard to replicate and very easy to miss once it's gone. Now, I want to talk about endings, which I think it's really important and gets framed badly almost everywhere. How an interaction ends matters enormously for whether she thinks about it afterward. And the mistake I see constantly is men dragging out the ending. Whether it's a date, a conversation, a texting exchange, the impulse when things are going well is to keep them going as long as possible, to not be the one to close the loop. Because closing the loop might mean losing something. But what actually happens when you extend things past their natural peak is that the memory gets diluted. The last thing she experienced wasn't that great electric moment from 20 minutes ago. It was the slightly tired, slightly winding down version of the conversation after you both ran out of real things to say. End things when they're still good. Leave when she's still enjoying herself. Close the text conversation when the exchange is at its warmest. That takes a certain kind of confidence because it requires trusting that there will be a next time, that you don't need to extract everything from this moment because there will be others. And that confidence itself is attractive. But more practically, it means the last emotional impression she has of being with you or talking to you is a positive and energized one. And that's the impression she takes to bed with her. That's the one that surfaces the next morning when something reminds her of you. I also want to gently push back on this idea that missing someone is something you can reliably engineer from the outside in. Because the deepest version of what I'm describing isn't a strategy at all. It's a byproduct of actually being a person worth missing. And there's a meaningful difference between those two orientations. One of them is constantly calculating. The other one is genuinely investing in the quality of who you are and what you bring. The calculating version is exhausting to maintain and eventually transparent. The genuine version compounds over time because it's actually real. Which brings me to something I want to say plainly. If you're asking what makes a girl miss you because you want a specific person to miss you right now, I understand that impulse completely. But the more useful reframe is to ask what kind of man produces that feeling naturally, not in one person, but consistently because of who he actually is. Because that man doesn't have to think about this very much. He just moves through his life with genuine investment in it. He connects with people with real curiosity and warmth. He doesn't make any one person the entire emotional weather system of his world. And the impression he leaves tends to linger because it was real. There's one more thing I want to add, and then I'll leave you with it. Physical and emotional presence before an absence matters. This sounds obvious, but it plays out in a specific way. If the last time you saw someone was flat or distracted or a little disconnected, that's the version of you that her mind has easy access to when you're not around. But if the last time she saw you, there was something genuinely good between you, something warm or funny or honest or memorable, that version of you is what shows up in her thoughts when a song comes on, or she sees something that reminds her of the conversation. You are, to some degree, whoever you were the last time she was with you. Which means every interaction is quietly setting the conditions for what the silence afterward will feel like. The guys who get this wrong tend to be focused almost entirely on frequency, on how often they're reaching out, how often they're in her line of sight, how often they're reminding her they exist. And frequency without quality is just noise. It might keep you present, but it won't make her miss you. What makes her miss you is the opposite of noise. It's the very specific feeling she gets when you're around that she doesn't quite get anywhere else. That feeling doesn't need to be manufactured. It needs to be real. And if it's real, your absence will carry weight all on its own, without you having to do anything to manufacture it. That's the thing most guys get wrong. They focus on the absence when the whole answer was always in the presence.